Kuber sir, we live, sir. Start, sir.
Yeah.
Kuber sir, you are mute, sir. Please, sir, start. Kuber.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at the ASSOCHAM webinar on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbharata is a key to self-reliance, which is going to take the Indian industry leaps and bounds as we go forward in this journey of Atmanirbharata, which is associated with Atmavishwas. On behalf of ASSOCHAM, the National Apex Chambers, I welcome all of you, the wonderful audience out there, the great panelists, and every one of you to this webinar on Atmanirbhar Bharat, India's role in the global defense supply chain. ASSOCHAM is the knowledge architect of corporate India. ASSOCHAM initiated its endeavor in value creation for the Indian industry way back in 1920. Having its fold in more than 400 chambers and trade associations, serving more than 4.5 lakh members from all over India, it has witnessed a number of upheavals and contributed to significantly playing a role, a catalytic role, in shaping trade, commerce, and the industrial environment of the country. Today, ASSOCHAM has emerged as the fountainhead of knowledge for the Indian industry, which is all set to redefine the dynamics of growth and development in the technology-driven cyber age, also known as the knowledge-based economy. ASSOCHAM is seen as a forceful, proactive, forward-looking institution equipping itself to meet the aspirations of corporate India in the new world. ASSOCHAM is working towards creating a conducive environment of India business to compete globally. It derives its strength from promoter chambers and other industry, regional chambers, associations spread all over the country. It's all about association. It's all about inclusiveness. It's all about getting us together in the journey of excellence. The vision is to empower Indian enterprise by inculcating knowledge that will be the catalyst of growth in the barrierless technology-driven global market and help them upscale, align, and emerge as a formidable player in the respective business segments. So, ladies and gentlemen, with more than 4.5 lakh members, it combines the entrepreneurial spirit and business acumen of owners with management skills and enterprise to professionals to set itself apart as a chamber with a difference. Currently, ASSOCHAM has got more than about 100 national councils covering the entire gamut of economic activities in India. It's been specially acknowledged as a significant voice in the Indian industry in the field of aerospace and defense, auto ancillaries, and other disciplines. Without wasting much time, ladies and gentlemen, we want to also give a very, very small, brief introduction of Ernst & Young, who are the knowledge partners to ASSOCHAM on this very important seminar. Ernst & Young is globally represented across more than about 180 countries. Ernst & Young is present in so many countries worldwide. In India, it's got more than about 10,000 people working here, and it's got a dedicated aerospace and defense practice, which I lead in the Ernst & Young Aerospace and Defense team, and the national leader for aerospace and defense is Ganesh Raj, and we have a very dynamic team which does a lot of research. We do technical papers almost every month. We create thought leadership. We create knowledge papers, and here we are with a small knowledge paper with ASSOCHAM in this particular seminar. On behalf of ASSOCHAM, I have great pleasure in welcoming a very great friend, a very dear friend, with whom I've spent 4 decades of my life, both in the army and outside as a consultant, and he still went on to command a corps, and he's presently the Master General Ordnance, Lieutenant General Santosh Kumar Upadhyaya, Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Sena Medal, Vishishta Seva Medal, Master General Ordnance, Indian Army. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot have a more distinguished person heading the MGO branch today. He's been in the MGO branch before as the ADG procurement. He has been a corps commander in one of the hot areas, which very few tread that path. He's been a divisional commander in a hot area. He's done all the courses that an army officer is expected to do. And let me tell you, he was the topper of our course, the 59th NDA course. When we all passed out together, he's one of the most brilliant guys who was out there, and we wish him more and more and more. He's going to tell us a lot about Atmanirbharta as we go forward. We will also be joined very shortly by Shri Sanjay Jaju, IAS Joint Secretary in the DIP. Sanjay Jaju needs no introduction. He is a friend of the industry. I remember him on the first ever seminar that we ever had in the Indian industry. Sanjay Jaju was already talking about how we need to profile the procurement, how we need to create more energy in the industry, and how we need to create that type of energy in terms like today he's implemented things like IDEX, he's implemented things like technology challenges, and there's a way to go. He's on central deputation from to the government of India, and he's from the Telangana cadre, a postgraduate mechanical engineer and a cost management accountant by background. So he's done a lot of work. I also have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Mayank Dwivedi. Mayank Dwivedi again is a great personality, a person with such great humility that you actually feel at home whenever you're sitting in front of him and you talk to him. He says, "You come to me more often. Don't leave me alone." He said, "I want to interact with the industry. I want to be with you." He is the director of Industry Interface and Technology Management and headquartered DRDO, a Master of Engineering Polymer Technology from DC, Delhi, and a doctorate in Advanced Composites from IIT Delhi, a recipient of gold medal. He is an alumni of the prestigious National Defense College, New Delhi. We are also joined by industry champions like we have William Blair. Bill Blair is a person whom I met way back more than a decade ago in the US in Boston, in Raytheon, and that was the time that he was talking all technology, and he was full of energy as to what all we are going to do for India. And William Blair today is heading Lockheed Martin in India, and with a great initiative, he's already conducted about 20 odd seminars and supply chain events where he wanted to integrate the Indian industry into the global supply chain of Lockheed Martin for the MH-60 Romeo. We have Dr. S.C. Kansal, who's co-chairman of the ASSOCHAM National Council on Aerospace and Defense. He needs no introduction. He's the man who was all over in the news in the DefExpo in Chennai when the contract was signed for the bulletproof jackets. And we are also joined by Ashwini Bhargava, who's the director of supply chain of Boeing in India. I'll talk a little more about him as we go forward. We will be joined very soon by Shri Vishweshwarrao Japala and Shri H.C. Bajpai, former chairman of Ordnance Factory Board, a very modest, a very thorough gentleman, and the person who's going to talk to us a little more about the corporatization of the ordnance factories. Mr. Bajpai, the person with whom I've interacted with, and every time I've interacted with, I've gone back with a treasure of knowledge. So we are going to have Dr. Bajpai here. Dr. Subbarao Pavluri, the chairman of Anand Technologies, based out of Hyderabad. I should tell you a small story. So it was maybe in 2006 or 7 when I was still in the MOD as a director of the capital acquisition programs that I visited Hyderabad and I visited Anand in connection with a small offset program where I had to do a check on the company, and I found that in the hollow square of the company which he created, there was a beautiful 30 feet flag hoisting pole, an Indian flag of a very huge magnitude. It was being regularly hoisted in the morning and dehoisted in the evening with a bugler. And that is the spirit with which he used to enter. Every day in the morning, regularly at 8 o'clock, the flag goes up. and in the evening he comes down, and Spick and Span company, a company which is specialized in space, a technologically oriented company, a homegrown technology company, a company that invests in research and development, a company that has grown into Make in India and Atmanirbhar Atma Vishwas. If you talk, he's done it since more than about 20 years. And he's done a great work in space, he's done a great work in electronics, and he's going to speak to us a little more. So without wasting much of your time, I have great pleasure in inviting Ashwini Bhargava, the Director Supply Chain Management of Boeing in India. He is responsible for managing the supply chain activities of all Boeing entities operating in India, leads a team of 100+ supply chain professionals. Boeing sources close to $1 billion annually. That's what I'm told. And that's very good news for all of us who are going to listen to him. Prior to his role, he was the sourcing leader for General Electric, and he is a member of the AmCham Manufacturing Committee. He holds a mechanical engineering degree from IIT Roorkee, a master in finance from Narsee Monjee. Oh, great! That's Ashwini Bhargava. May I invite you, Ashwini, for your little talk, and then open yourself to question and answers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colonel Kuber. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay, so first I want to thank you and ASSOCHAM for inviting me to this webinar and allowing me the company of this esteemed panel here. So I'm privileged. Thank you so much. As you know, and before I get into the supply chain piece, India is a very important market for Boeing. We've sold practically every platform, P-8, C-17, Chinooks and Apaches. I mean, some of these platforms are taking care of the country at the border right now as we speak. So it's very important from that perspective. In addition, we have a very special space or role in the global supply chain. As you rightly pointed, we source close to about $1 billion in products and services. And when we started a journey a few years back, honestly, it started with the defense products. And at that point of time, it was only offset. And that is what people thought is the right value proposition to take the sourcing effort to India. Now, again, from the supply chain perspective, today, I'm happy to share that some of the critical products that go on in the Boeing platform, for example, you have heard about the Apache fuse that is getting done at a joint venture in Hyderabad. We are supplying most of the requirements to our production facility out of India. Similarly, there's a lot of other products that go from India. There's a huge dependence on the India supply chain. So in that context, we play a very important role as far as Boeing's supply chain is concerned. Now let's look at the journey. We've been talking about offset for a long period of time, but we have moved from that theme, and that I don't think sells in the long term. Offset is important, and that's one of the reasons we do work in India. But we have moved from the narrative of bringing the work to India for offset to bringing the work to India for value. And when you look at the market, when you look at the supply base that we have set up here, I think it supports the theme that we're talking about in context of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We started with smaller structures and smaller wire harnesses. And I thought that was a good start because the aerospace and defense supply chain was very raw. And today, the supply chain has matured. We have gone beyond smaller structures and wire harnesses. And if you think about the body of the Apache helicopter, which is a very complex product, we make it in India. We make the complex Chinook structures in India. We make forgings. We make critical panels. We make electronic parts. And we are getting into a much bigger breadth of commodities as we speak. Therefore, India is offering affordable solutions to us, and that's why it's an important market. Now, in context of Atmanirbhar Bharat, it's important to understand that the journey has been, and I'll be happy to answer questions on the work that we have in country. But, in support of the theme that we're talking about, it's important to understand what we have observed and experienced in India. There have been a lot of positives, or enablers, as we call it, that have resulted in this level of growth. But if we have to move one level further, and if we have to be Atmanirbhar in true context, I'll share with you some of the elements that are missing in India, and I'm confident we can bridge the gap. So first, let's look at the positives. In order to develop supply chain in India, it's very important that OEMs invest here. Investment is not just in dollars, but it's all about helping the supply base grow and learn. And that's what Boeing has done. And Colonel Kuber said, I have a team of 100 plus professionals, very bright engineers who are able to help, very knowledgeable. So they're able to help develop the suppliers. So that's one great part about what we do here. The second is we are well aware of the engineering talent that we have in country. So in that context, the human capital is known for its expertise and strength, very well respected across the globe, and that's a positive. Cost, people talk about India, and I don't like this word low-cost country, but I'll rather say that it's a country that provides an affordable solution, because it's not just about the labor arbitrage. It's also about the value. It's also about the innovative ideas that we bring to the table. And nothing succeeds without having a very good supply base. Now, automotive sector has been mature over a period, for a long time, and we've been able to pick some suppliers out of the automotive industry. But it is known that once the suppliers get going here, they're capable of meeting the requirements. And of course, today we have to go beyond cost, quality, delivery, because everybody offers cost, everybody offers quality and delivery. And by the way, quality and delivery is given in the aerospace world. And lastly, I'll say there is a government intent. I mean, if you look at the teams of the different initiatives, whether it's Make in India or Atmanirbhar Bharat or Skill India, I think those are the right enablers for us to get to the journey that we have taken. Now let's look at what's missing in India, and that's important for us to understand, because if we have to go to the next level, we have to look at all of these. And by the way, these are coming out of our experience of working in the Indian industry here, particularly in the aerospace and defense sector. So first of all, it's very important for us to have the complete ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, means not only suppliers who can do a particular activity, but the entire activity that goes into manufacturing the part. So for example, there's still some special processes that are missing. We still have to send some products, if you machine the part, we still have to send some parts outside of India to get an operation done and bring it back to India and then ship it back to the US. So if we have to get Atmanirbhar, if we have to complete the full value chain, we have to look at the full ecosystem. And that comes from tier 1 suppliers, it comes from tier 2 suppliers, it comes from MSMEs, and we have developed a huge ecosystem. And by the way, we have 225 suppliers between tier 1s and tier 2s in country. And that's a huge network, as you can imagine. The second piece is we need the scale. Scale to justify the business case of making the part here. And from our perspective, we are one of the very few OEMs who are, having both the commercial airlines and the defense work in India. And that helps us build certain level of scale. And if we combine the requirements that we have from the India market perspective, I think we can get to a reasonable scale there. Product technology is very important. That's where the design capability, build to spec capability comes into picture. And then one of the areas which has not been very well understood, though there are several initiatives here, is the skill. Aerospace is a different world. You can't expect, or you can't afford even one defect here. So in that context, very important to have a skilled workforce. Quality. Very often we say, hey, Indian suppliers can meet the quality. I think the challenge is to have the ability to deliver consistent quality every time, not just one time. And then last thing, Colonel Kuber, before I pass it back to you, one of the things which is very important in today's context is speed. You can have the ability to make a part. You can have an ability to manufacture something or do the value addition. But if you can't do it fast enough, it may not be helpful. So these are the different elements that Boeing is working on. I can speak more on all the attributes that I talked about. We are taking actions on all of this. We are committed to partner with the supply base here because we're not happy with what we are doing here. I think we can do more. We have to partner with the ecosystem here. And again, we are committed. And I have no hesitation to say that we will succeed in the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative that we've taken. So back to you, Colonel Kuber. I'll be happy to answer questions.
I am so happy to hear that, Ashwini. So happy to hear that. In fact, companies like yours are the ones, when we talk of Atmanirbharata, at least I have no doubts in my mind. I may be less educated on that, but then at least I have no doubts that we have to have an inclusive concept in Atmanirbharata. And that inclusive concept extends to our friends, our allies, from where the technologies come. Although we have developed some excellent technologies, Dr. Mayank will take us through on that. But we know that we also need a few technologies. We also need today, if we have to grow inorganically, I think we need to grow, and companies like yours will really help us. And you will be very happy to know that companies like Anand Technologies, who are also here on the panel, are super excellent companies in terms of technology, understanding, in terms of absorbing, in terms of taking it forward, because they invest a lot in R&D and they actually work through that. There are a number of companies out there. I'm putting because he's here, and I think this is where we thought we should engage Boeing. When you talked about the low, if we should not call it low cost. Obviously, I'm so happy that you said that, because quality comes with cost. And if you want low cost, then you got to talk of L1, and you know what you will get with L1, and that's a different topic for a different day. But I think you made a point in saying that the missing links in the system is to say things like ecosystem, speed of manufacture, and I think that's very good. But tell me, you are a company who's enjoying the DG acquisitions, good vibes. P8I Training Solutions, P8I LRMR ASW, H-4464E Apaches, Harpoon missiles, additional Apaches, CH-47 Chinooks, P8I Maine, Globemaster, and now you're looking at the MRCA. I think India has done a lot as far as Boeing is concerned. And when you say you got 225, I don't know if it should become 2250. And I think I'm sure you'll work towards that. And in fact, you said that you will take us, because after all, we at this point in time, we may need a little help in taking us to the dream of Atmanirbharata. What do you have to say?
No, absolutely. If we look at the fighter deal as a huge opportunity, both the Navy as well as the Air Force, and there are several other India campaigns here. So you're right. For us to build an aircraft in country, it will require hundreds and thousands of suppliers. And, not just looking at the local market. And by the way, 99.5% of what we do is exports. So we are in country irrespective of the campaigns right now, because we find value in what we do and take it to our global supply chain network. So this is also helping us get the suppliers ready. And the 225 suppliers that I talked about, 200 plus are exporting the parts. So they are getting used to the quality, delivery, and the speed expectations. And I'm sure that will help us, take it to the next level from here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was an excellent talk by Ashwini. We are going to get back to him. I requested him to stay on because I'm looking for questions from the audience. Otherwise, I'm going to pose a few. I'll request him to stay on. And we are now joined by Mr. Vishweshwarrao Jappala, who's from the Sanathan Allied Industries. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you, when we talk about Atmanirbharata and we talk about Atmavishwas for Atmanirbharata, actually, we should we've been talking, at least I've been talking about this concept of strategic independence for a long time. And I derived this concept from what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that if you want to be happy, the formula for happiness in the Bhagavad Gita is given as the number of desires fulfilled divided by the number of desires entertained. So if you have entertained 10 desires and you have fulfilled all the 10 desires, you feel that you are a very happy person. So Lord Krishna says, don't concentrate on the numerator, concentrate on the denominator. So if you don't entertain a desire, you're infinitely happy all the time. And like that, strategic independence can be defined as the production that we do and the exports that we do in the numerator divided by the imports that we do in the denominator. So for the present time, this is standing at 0.35, which is not a very good number. If we want to go towards interdependence, then, your exports should be equal to your imports, and that will be somewhere close to 1, and then you can call yourself interdependence. And you declare yourself strategically independent only when your imports reduce and your exports increase at the same time. So here I have the great pleasure in inviting Mr. Vishweshwarrao Japala to give his talk for about 5 minutes or so. Then we take on some questions. Mr. Japala.
Sir, I guess Mr. Japala sir is having some trouble, so I guess he's logging in again. So can we move to the next speaker? Then in between we will give a chance to.
I think so.
Okay, sir.
So yeah. So, talking about this strategic independence and talking about Atmanirbharta, self-sufficiency versus self-reliance, we need to understand this difference. And we initially achieve self-sufficiency, at least in the critical areas. And to go towards self-reliance, we need to develop those technologies, invest in technologies. Of course, Dr. Mayank is going to take us through that with a roadmap, with identification of disciplines and how we are going to do that. But I must tell you about Dr. Subbarao Pavluri. So Dr. Subbarao Pavluri, the chairman of Anand Technologies, he's got an extensive experience in space programs, and he founded this company in 1993, contributing to design, development, fabrication of satellite subsystems, complete assembly, integration, testing of satellites in the national and international market. He contributed to launch of various vehicle programs by making avionics subsystems and complete integration of subassemblies for at least about 82 satellites and 65 launch vehicles of the ISRO. And his contribution in defense is extensively in terms of design, development, manufacturing of systems for DRDO, for BDL, for BrahMos, Army, Air Force, Navy. He's got his feet everywhere. He's coming out with a huge facility in Thiruvananthapuram. He's got a huge facility in Bangalore next to the airport. And of course, the iconic facility at Hyderabad. Dr. Subbarao Pavluri, may I invite you, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Colonel Kuber. And thanks to my other co-panelists, and thanks to Ashom for inviting me for this. I'll just briefly go, give just to know what we think about this country can do, and what is being looked upon by the rest of the world in this area. And as you know, the supply chains are key to the ability of aerospace and defense organizations to function efficiently and effectively. So this is what exactly Mr. Ashwini also mentioned just now. The chains are incredibly complex because we are talking about beyond the shores of country. These chains are incredibly complex and are made up of several tiers of different types of suppliers. The tier 1, tier 2, different types of suppliers. This includes scores of original equipment manufacturers and repair and overhaul providers, small part suppliers, and maintenance and support through to the customers over a period of time. And whether this is the commercial or military, this holds good. To make this even more complex, over the past few decades, both the supplier and the customer base have become global in nature. Supply chains have adopted digital technologies, of course, are vertically integrated and operate on a just-in-time basis. And in fact, the post-COVID has taught us a lot of lessons in this regard. Over the past decade, there has been an emphasis on risk-sharing partnerships in supply chain contracting. This is what I think a new era is going to tell us, that you're going to be, since the risks are going to be a lot all around, there's going to be risk-sharing partnerships in this regard. The mantra has been collaborative agreements based on the risk and revenue sharing agreements. The aerospace and defense industries is that supply chains are very often specialized, is what the the Boeing gentleman, Mr. Ashwini Bhargava, mentioned, very specialized and often requires companies to be pre-qualified for doing the activity. See, this being the overall scenario, if you look at what's happening in this country, from my perspective, see, India has, as you know, a lot of skilled manpower. And wherever the skill is little lacking from the global perspective, that can be added in no time because the Indians have the high IQ in terms of learning and implementing things. And as far as the equipment is concerned, most of the equipment that is for manufacturing equipment is already being imported. So therefore, we'll be able to get in the same amount of quality and the processes, what the foreign companies are expecting. So that's how we can become the part of the global supply chain. So I just want to give you an example of how the ISRO has developed the supply chain in this regard. As you know, Indian space program so far has developed 75 successful launch vehicles. And the satellites, 109 satellites, and 3 are more going to be launched very shortly. And we had the experimental missions, about 4 numbers. That's for Chandrayaan programs, Mars programs, like this. We have about experimental satellites also, satellite programs for these. And I must tell you, all these programs are flawless. When you say flawless, it's flawless. And success of the PSLV program alone. In the PSLV programs alone, there are nearly about 300 satellites we launched from this country for for 36 countries abroad. So it only shows the supply chain, entire ecosystem that has been created in this country. But tell you about 500 companies have been working for Indian space program. And of course, fortunately, we are also one among them. And we have personally, from our company, we contributed to 65 satellites. And 65 launch vehicles and 85 satellites. And this kind of extensive, this is not only just, simply doing a printing and manufacturing activity. There's a lot of things, the design, development, the manufacturing, the quality processes, a lot of things involved into this. And it has been a good opportunity for Indian space program always, to qualify a company before putting them in a part of supply chain. This is what our friend, Mr. Ashwini Bhargava also mentioned in the same fashion. So what I'm going to say here is this kind of excellence is available in this country already. And we have the proven programs. And I'm glad to learn again from Mr. Ashwini Bhargava that, they're sourcing more than $1 billion worth of component from this country. And that speaks volumes about the India's readiness in this area. And similarly, in fact, we have developed a kind of an ecosystem for various missile programs which have been indigenously developed by DRDO. For example, take the account of Akash, Astra, which are now getting into the hundreds of numbers, and they're becoming the main force for protection of this country. And the complete ecosystem has been developed in DRDO and is being manufactured by the industry as such. So therefore, that the Indian supply system, which has been already be established by space and the defense in these areas, can take up the challenges for international, the global supply chain system too. And of course, similarly, when we're working on the various other aircraft programs, HAL has developed their own supply chain system. And there were many agencies of this kind. So therefore, it becomes easy for the global supply chain suppliers, or OEMs, to build on the experience already built in this country. And of course, as I said, the offset is not very important part of it. That's only in order to ensure that the participation happens from the foreign OEMs with the Indian industry that have been done. But today, India has matured such an extent, is what Mr. Ashwini Bhargava also mentioned. He mentioned this has matured to such an extent that, we will be able to compete internationally in terms of making the supplies in this area. And, so that's why, that's the reason why, the system today has been created is such that it has a diversification. So we're talking about plastics to mechanical to electronics to embedded systems to various other things. It has very resilient system already have built in this country, and there's a reliability that has been built into it because that's utmost for the aerospace industry. And more than anything else, the Prime Minister of India, of the new governments are coming. The taxation has been very friendly, and minimum bureaucratic intervention, and the regulatory oversight, and a very good judicial in order to settle any issues that comes up into that area. So that's the entire ecosystem, starting from the quality processes, industries, judiciary, taxation, statutory requirements. Everything has been so much developed in this country already. And we are no more just a developing country. In fact, in many areas, particularly in this area, we are already developed in the nation as such. So global companies can recognize and the need to diversify their supply chains to India. Now, particularly after this post-pandemic and things what's happening in our neighborhood, and of course, many countries don't want to get into some other areas and get it done. India not only can give you, I don't want to say that we are going to be the L1 always, as I mentioned, but L1 is not essentially things that will give you the best product. But we can give you the best of the product at the lowest possible pricing in this country. That's how then we can integrate our country, our industries to global supply chain system. And recently, as you know, the Prime Minister of India clearly positioned India as a hub for a global supply system and highlighting India's location, reliability, and policy stability in this regard. And more than anything else, ease of doing business in this country. So therefore, we do hope that OEMs take full advantage of India as part of global supply system, not only just as a cost alone, but not only from the cost of point of view, only cost alone, but ability, intellectual ability from that point of view too. So hopefully, I think my friends internationally, OEMs will look India more positively. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Subbarao Pavluri, you said it. Talk about intellectuals. Talk about knowledge. There is a very famous, again, I'll have to go back to Sanskrit to say that. Swadeshe pujyate Raja Vidwan Sarvatra pujyate. The king is worshipped only in his own country. A Vidwan, a person with knowledge, is worshipped across the universe. Swadeshe pujyate Raja Vidwan Sarvatra pujyate. Dr. Subbarao, you talked about risk-sharing partnerships. You talked about collaborative arrangements. You were in synergy with what Ashwini was saying, and I really like both a foreign OEM of the stature of Boeing and an Indian company, a technologically evolved company such as yours, talking the same language. You talked about flawless programs. You talked about 300 satellites launched for 36 countries. You talked about Akash. You talked about Astra. I think the glories are unending, something like your name. And again, I'm reminded of Duryodhana when he was telling Dronacharya and he was explaining the forces on the other side on the battlefield. He started describing the conches. He said, Ananta Vijayam Raja Kuti Putro Yudhishthira. Ananta Vijaya. So I think you are from Ananta Technologies. You should be Ananta Vijaya. You should be able to do more. And you talked about plastics, metal, embedded systems. That was very good. And I'm sure the OEMs concerned are listening. And I have great pleasure now in welcoming my old friend, Bill Blair. So William Blair is the Vice President and Chief Executive, Lockheed Martin India Private Limited. He's a business development executive in career spanning more than about 30 years with strong technical background, delivering growth in commercial and defense sectors in the United States and international based roles. Significant global experience in Asia, India, Singapore, Japan, Korea, China, in Europe, Germany, France, Italy, and Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel, business development, P&L, and engineering experience in aerospace and defense. He is the chief executive in India. He has been the vice president strategic solutions and in the Middle East executive. He's been in Raytheon for about 5 years and 5 months as vice president business development, air and missile defense systems. He probably conceived the NASAMS as we are talking about them today. He was the president Raytheon Asia, Raytheon International. He was with GE Aviation, and that's when I think I met him. When in the year of Lord 2008 or 9, when he was with GE Aviation as EVP Engine Alliance, an India country executive from December 5 to August 8. Maybe that was the time. So that is Bill Blair for you, ladies and gentlemen. I should also talk about, before he starts, or I should also tell him that, Lockheed Martin is one of the most evolved countries specializing in military aircrafts and military systems. They do only one thing and they do it very well. And we have the C-130s from them. We have even on the options, we have taken it from them. And they are already sitting on the MH-60 Romeo. And we are going to look at more systems from Lockheed Martin as we go forward. We are talking about the F-21s. We are talking about many other things. So, Bill Blair, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Colonel Kabir, and very kind introduction, and you covered some of my talking points for me, so that makes it very easy. Anyways, I think, given the subject of India's role in the global defense supply chain, I'd like just to start with, partly the introduction. My experience, I've been fortunate to be coming to India and part of India really since the mid-1990s, so over 3 decades now in different roles. And I've seen it then, therefore, through different lenses. Early on through the power sector, and really when there was huge demand, if you remember the 1990s, 96 timeframe, and you started to see the private sector coming up, and so I was fortunate to experience that, and that really set a foundation for me going forward to then experience the same in the commercial aviation sector in the mid-2000s as part of GE Aviation. And we saw that engagement as setting a foundation for how companies from the U.S. could start to source, high-end aerospace and defense capabilities out of India to meet then the upcoming requirements of the MMRCA in the early days. And then I was back here again, 2010 to 2013, and continued on through 2015, engaging in India. And every step of the way, I think success has been achieved by companies that established that foundation early. And they established the foundation out of the opportunity, not obligation. So really the theme of my discussion would be, I would submit, it's a foundation and future. And I see U.S. and India and companies and the government-to-government activities were natural and trusted partners. And I think that's been truly demonstrated over the last 10, 20, and really 30 years that we've been here as Lockheed Martin, but in particularly over the last decade. In Lockheed Martin, we're the world's largest defense and aerospace company, so we believe in building a foundation of partners and strategic suppliers in the countries where we operate. And it's with a focus on meeting our customers' missions. So Colonel Kubera, you introduced me talking about the C-130Js that are, a multi-mission platform, critical for the Indian Air Force, and demonstrating the highest availability in the fleet. And it's tremendously important, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And now with the MH-60 Romeo being selected by the Indian Navy earlier this year, we're accelerating the development or the production so that we can meet deliveries early in the new year to meet a critical requirement for ASW and anti-surface capability for the Indian Navy. When we say, and we mean it, we're committed to making India, for India, from India, and really for the globe, because we've been fortunate through joint ventures and through the supply chain engagement to have established really strong roots with companies from the very large companies, as well as Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, micro, small and medium enterprises, and even startups that we've been incubating through the Innovation Growth Program. I'd like to just take a moment to highlight our joint ventures with Tata, if I could. These were established over 10 years ago, and I'll repeat myself. It was out of opportunity, not obligation. It wasn't an offset requirement. In fact, I would say of the hundreds of millions of dollars that were invested, a very small percentage of that would be recognized through offset. So if you measured it through offset fulfillment, you wouldn't really see the true value of creating those joint ventures. And that was in advance of a real requirement. So C-130J empennages, we've now delivered 130 empennages to date, 12 of those operating on the C-130Js in operation by the Indian Air Force. What's really important is that, we started out that venture importing components, assembling them to deliver an empennage. Now the team's proud to say that they've achieved 87% indigenous content in every C-130J empennage that's delivered out of Hyderabad through the Tata Lockheed Martin Aerostructures Limited. That's important because I think that shows the ability to build a foundation and then grow it and then get to that level of indigenization. And with that, the JV is dealing with over 300 Indian suppliers, over 50 MSMEs, and that's helping to build an ecosystem. Now that's centered in Hyderabad, but it really extends throughout India. Similarly, the Tata Sikorsky Aerospace Limited joint venture with Tata, both of these established 10 years ago. Now, the Tata Sikorsky Aerospace venture was producing and does produce S-92 cabins, S-92 helicopter cabins. So none of those have yet been inducted into the Indian services or the Coast Guard, but it's meeting a global requirement. It's delivering tremendous export value, and it's helping build that same aerospace and defense ecosystem that I cited with the TLML JV. So with TCell, they engage over 500 suppliers across India. Over 66 of those are MSMEs, and of those, 30 to 35 suppliers are involved in the manufacturing or processing of the parts that go on the specific TCell platforms. But there's another important component. That foundation was set 10 years ago, but the leaders of that joint venture were able to expand that to actually now produce components for Rolls-Royce aircraft engines, GE aircraft engines, and many other applications from an aerospace and defense perspective. And so you start to see the value of establish a foundation, grow it, deliver, and deliver reliably. In both of these JVs, we meet the quality, meet or exceed the quality requirements, the cost and price, and also the delivery. We've been able to meet our deliveries, and that's a strong commitment to the team, Telangana state government for supporting us as we came out of the very restrictive lockdown. And then another component I'd just like to share with you in the spirit of what we're all doing right now, and that is a virtual engagement. We hosted a virtual supplier conference back in July. We joined hands with the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers and CII to put on an event that it wasn't just a webinar, it was actually a virtual exhibition. And we were able to host this conference over 5 days, but the exhibition over a full month. And we engaged over 500 delegates, well over 300 companies of all sizes, and 62 of those companies were exhibitors. And so, I think out of challenge, we find opportunities. And I think this is a good example because in a way, what we were able to achieve on a virtual platform was, I think, a more inclusive, broader engagement than if we had done that face-to-face. And when I say broader engagement, that's inclusive of our 4 business areas, aeronautics, rotary and mission systems, missiles and fire control, and space. So across all domains, we were able to drive a level of engagement that I trust and know will establish new relationships as well as reinforce existing ones. And then one other thing I'd like to highlight, and that is with the Self-Reliant India Initiative, with the investment, the increase in FDI allowance from 49 to 74%, I think that all is directed towards increasing indigenous content, increasing defense exports, and meeting the Indian requirements as well. One area that I think we can all benefit from is investment and collaboration in raw materials. No one company, whether it's Lockheed Martin, Boeing, HAL, Tata, L&T, could collect the level of requirement to maybe command the level of investment in attracting and developing capability in the raw material sector. We work with private sector, Bart Forge Limited, Hindalco. There are many companies that are in this domain, but I think there's a real opportunity in more of a consortium approach, public and private sector, and with the government, to focus investment, integrate the requirements for the raw material, because there's a synergy across both the defense and the civil sector requirements that if we were to integrate it, I think we would get to the scale that's needed to actually justify the level of investment, and then the return on investment for sourcing the raw materials in India where we can, processing it, and then the testing and certification capability that's so important to meet the most challenging requirements. And then lastly, I think what I'll close with is skills development and startup development. Really how we incubate both the next generation of leaders in aerospace and defense is critically important, and how we incubate those startup companies are critically important as well. That's going to give us a sustainable and robust and growing, I think, aerospace and defense ecosystem that we can rely on for decades to come. We've been involved in STEM initiatives with women in aviation. We've been involved through our joint venture, a women's apprenticeship program, where they bring in women from remote villages, give them the skills and on-the-job training, and then give them the opportunity to grow. And there are many that have come up through that program that are now supervisors at the joint ventures. And I think that's tremendously important. I know at the JV, they train more than 1,500 personnel, and that is basically helping set that foundation for the aerospace and defense ecosystem. And we're also part of the India Innovation Growth Program, which serves as a platform to incubate startups. And just in summary, over a 14-year journey in partnership with the government of India through the Department of Science and Technology, and also with Tata Trusts, we've been able to incubate startups, run university challenges. And to date, we've reached over 400 business agreements under this program and generated almost $1 billion of output for the Indian economy through incubating and promoting opportunities for these startups. And I'll close with that because I think that's where our next inflection point is in not just the supply chain for what we produce, but the knowledge base in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, digital transformation, microelectronics. That's going to help us deliver the 21st connectivity in the defense domain that we all need to be successful and competitive. So thank you for the opportunity to share some of these ideas and experiences with you, and open for any questions. Thank you.
Well, Blair, that was very, very good, Bill, when you talked about you're doing it as an opportunity and not as an obligation. And you began from there, and you went on to conclude to say that out of challenge we find opportunities. I think that was very good. The collaborative approach for raw materials is something that's very interesting, because that's something that the country is embarking upon as we talk. And I think Mr. Jaju will be throwing some ideas on that when he comes up for this. And I've been associated with the Innovation Growth Program as part of the Millennium Alliance. And I must tell you, as an independent observer, it's a fantastic program, and part of a number of startups, and I've personally been there assessing some of them, and it's a very, very great thing that you've done. 87% indigenous content in the Tata Lockheed Inponage. It's great to hear. Are you getting offset for that? Are you getting offset credit for that?
Yeah, we're getting offset credit, but I was really trying to cite that as, I think if you were to measure it just by offsets that are been approved through DOMW, you wouldn't see the full value. And so I think that's the opportunity going forward under the DAP 2020. How can we, extend and make greater investments, not in the tens of millions, but in the hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to be more transformational? Because a lot of that is, and I don't want to diminish it, it's significant. They're opponent sub-assemblies that are very challenging. But I think when we start to think in the future going forward, I think there's greater opportunities even more. So yes, we're getting some offset value, but I think a small fraction of, the real value that's been created, because in part it's challenging, I think, for those projects to be reviewed and approved. And so we as, foreign OEMs may take a bit more conservative approach and go through more of a more pure and traditional supply chain. But I trust and believe with the new DAP 2020, some of the provisions for reviewing TOT and promoting investment through IDEX, I think some of those provisions are going to allow us to take it to a higher level going forward.
What we spoke a decade and a half ago, and I'm hearing the same echo right now. And I know I like the way you say offsets are almost incidental and we are actually looking at value. That's really very good. One another message I want to get to the industry, when you say, you're engaging with 300 companies and 50 MSMEs, and the Tata Sikorsky with 566 MSMEs, are you suggesting that if an Indian company has to interface with Lockheed, they have to go and engage with one of these two JVs?
No,
Lockheed
not at all.
Yeah. Please.
No, not at all. And yeah, I should have clarified, actually. I mean, that was, we have, I think, well over 200 suppliers we engage with directly as well as Lockheed Martin. I just wanted to cite, correct, and I just wanted to cite the importance of how JVs established 10 years ago were actually instrumental, I think, in helping incubate and accelerate the defense and aerospace ecosystem. But absolutely, no, we work directly as well, and that was really the purpose of our virtual supplier conference and all of the face-to-face supplier conferences we've held over the last 5 years or more.
That was very good. It was a great success. I know that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to this, he's the guy to speak to. He's the one who's going to engage. He's the one who's going to give you business, who's going to take you into the global market. And between Ashwini Bhargav and seeing the Indian companies grow leaps and bounds in terms of the opportunities that they can interface in the global supply chain. And I think this was very good. We've been talking about the entire concept of Atmanirbharta. At the end of the day, the conference is about Atmanirbharta and how we would focus on defense exports, how we would align our self-reliant goals with the perspective plans, how we would identify that roadmap for disciplines. And while Dr. Mayank Dwivedi is just about going to tell us, I think Mr. Japala has joined. Mr. Vishweshwara Japala from Sanathan Allied Industries. Would you like to give a 5-minute talk about yourself and how you see Atmanirbharta?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everybody. Very nice listening to you. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Good. Please go ahead. Quickly. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, prehistorically, India has been a great developer of defense technologies, as we know from pre-Vedic days. So, I feel we have lost in the middle somewhere, and maybe this is a good chance. We are coming back with a bang. Colonial era things where we could not really measure our technologies, or we didn't have sufficient space to expose our capability. For us, we flag systems. We are the first Indian company to manufacture run flag systems. In 2008, we have started in Hyderabad, and to tell you frankly, we found it very difficult to enter the Indian companies to supply to Indian OFBs, or went out to find out our niche. And fortunately, we are supplying to more than 15 countries, including Israel, Australia, and other developed countries, to name few. So what I feel like, yes, definitely we have the capabilities as a small suppliers, as small specialty part suppliers. We have grown up. Now it's a stage to go to the assembly stage where we can do large assemblies. When our is to really get into 100% indigenization with the support, definitely from foreign players, as well as the able scientists of India. And I have also a comment on DRDO's capabilities. Yes, of course, DRDO is very well doing a lot of work to promote the capabilities and also developing a lot of products. But unfortunately, when it comes down to the commercialization, I feel my experience with the Ordnance Factory Boards. When we have started manufacturing ground flags in 2008, we went to Ordnance Factory Board and other government organizations, but unfortunately, we didn't find success there. But we have started to work with Ashok Leyland Tata, and today Ordnance Factory, of course, we are supplying to Ordnance factories, but I feel corporate corporatization of ordnance factories definitely will help us to become more capable to deliver better goods and in time. I mean, maybe this is not a biased view. I feel because we have such a brilliant, beautiful products lying in our ordnance factories which never get commercialized. I do not know. I do not want to also comment on those innate points which you are very well aware of. But as an MSME, because I have grown up from a very low stage where I had no support, and today we are serving 15 countries as one part, very crucial part supplier, which is a run flat for armored vehicles. So what I feel like, the amount of support what we get from outside, once our value or our offering is accepted, assume that, now we are major supplier for Israel. Not many people know that we supply run flats for, including Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Indian Prime Minister as well. But again, you see that has come later stage. So what I feel like, people like you who are on the advisory board, it is very important to definitely support our MSMEs who are very much capable, but unfortunately because of the red tape, they are not able to do it. Maybe as very well said that if we can really make a skillful thing like, where people can come in and join as and when if they have a technology. And this is one of my view, what I was feeling, that like we are making such an intricate, special spares and supplying them outside. And if we can really bring that together and make, like what they do, Rosborn exports in Russia, what they do is they bring up and they make a final product and sell it. This gives us more capability. This gives us more power, and this gives us more revenue to also show. Now, assume that why people start to push you down because you are not able to deliver, or when India is such a vast and knowledgeable country, but unfortunately the amount of success what we have succeeded in space or missile technology, the other technologies we are not able to really capture the complete value. And
that's good.
I'm very optimistic that, I'm very optimistic that maybe in near future, another 20 years, 25 years, we can see India to be one of the large, maybe 30% of global exports or global offering. We can do it. That's what I pray. And I also pray that people like you definitely guide the government, our country proud again as it was earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vishweshwar Rao Japala. When an MSME speaks, the world will listen. And I think that was very, very good story when you started. The only example I can think of very close to you is the Prime Minister of India. He started small and he reached where it is. I'm sure you'll reach much greater heights than where you are today. And when you talked about the pre-Vedic age, I would like to tell Bill Blair that we had people in this country, our rishis used to just imagine and produce a weapon system that could multiply itself in the air and could actually, the missile systems which could damage electronics and whatnot. We had that capability, and that's what Vishweshwar is telling us, the pre-Vedic age. And I think you made a comment on the commercialization of technologies, and I think I want to contribute to that and say that DRDO has today reached the figure of 1,000, and actually they've crossed 1,000. So 1,000 they reached about a month ago. And I have been personally associated with this particular transfer of technology from DRDO. And let me tell you, it's one of the fantastic programs that's going around. and the amount of work that Dr. Mayank Dwivedi and his team are doing is something that makes us all feel very proud of. It's hair-raising. If you go to the directorate, they are extremely helpful. They will put you through to the right scientists. They will get you the technologies that you want. In fact, they will even go forward to help you if you're an MSME to even get it to you free of cost. I mean, I don't know if I'm making an overcommitment, but I think they will do that. And Dr. Mayank is going to talk about us. And when you talked about supplying to the Israeli Prime Minister and then our Prime Minister took, it normally happens. Our children also, we ourselves don't know our children most of the time. Only when others come and say, oh, your son or your daughter is so good, then you start realizing that your child is good. So I think that's where it happens, and that's very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was a very good talk from Vishweshwar Japala. He talked about the corporatization of OFB, and we have got an expert over there who's going to talk about that. But before I come to that, I should talk about this gentleman who is the one who's going to give you technologies almost free of cost, if not free of cost. He is an alumni from the prestigious National Defense College, an MTech in polymer technology. He started his career in Hyderabad in ASL in 1992. Initial years, he worked in area of polymeric composites and nanocomposites. He's worked in stealth, radar absorbing systems, worked on major projects, Agni, BrahMos, water technologies, biochemical devices. An expert, a great man, a very humble person, a very wonderful person to talk to. He is the one whom we all should go and interact with. He is recipient of the Agni Award for Excellence in Self-Reliance in 2018 and the Lab Scientist of the Year Award in DRDO 2013. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Mayank Dwivedi. Dr. Dwivedi, may I please invite you for a quick 10-minute talk, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you for a very nice introduction. All panelists, industry participants, ASSOCHAM officials, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to you all. Let me tell you this topic, whatever Atmanirbhar Bharat and India's role in global defense supply chain, is a very apt topic. If we want to really make our country a Atmanirbhar Bharat with Atmanirbharta, I think we have to generate money, we have to generate resources, and for that, exports are very important. Also, as our Honorable Prime Minister has told that $5 billion export to be achieved by 2025, I think towards that, the defense manufacturing sector has to play a very important role. Here, I would like to tell you one thing, that DRDO, as you know, is a defense R&D hub, and it does R&D in all the niche technology areas and cater the needs of the Indian Armed Forces. And it works in each and every aspect of technology, defense technology. And here, I would like to tell you whatever R&D we do, that industries are very valuable partners, and whatever the R&D, the product comes out, the prototype comes out, it is produced by the Indian industries, and that's how it goes to the Indian Armed Forces. So they are very, very important stakeholders along with us. They get involved with us right from the project stages, initial stages, and that's how they develop and grow with us, and that's how the technology transfer to them later on, and they supply to Indian Armed Forces. Here, one very important thing is there when we talk about this Atmanirbhar Bharat thing, where India is standing global defense supply chain. And let me tell you, I am proud to tell you, today there are many DRDO developed products are being exported to various countries. They include the technologies like radar systems, sonar systems, torpedoes, some bulletproof jackets, etc. And the way Indian industries are climbing up in this ladder, it is really fantastic. The reason I tell you why, when we give the technology from DRDO to industry, there we do not give only know-how, we also provide the know-why. And we provide a complete hand-holding support. That's how the industry not only absorbs the technology, they get educated in that particular technology area. And there, we also allow the industry to develop their own modification and their own variants, where the exclusive marketing rights are given to the industries. That's how the industry feels so comfortable with us, that they not only develop the product, whatever we have transferred the technology, rather they go for the add-on features. And there are 2 or 3 industries recently which have come up with a major systems where they have value added whatever we did as a Mark II or Mark III. This is a very good and healthy situation, and that's how we find the synergy between DRDO and industry is really fantastic. And we are really proud of our industry, the way they have come up in the last 8-10 years. I think the leaps and bounds they have come up in this manufacturing role. And not only that, the complete ecosystem works, like previous speakers told about Akash missile system and Astra missile system. Let me tell you, when Akash missile system we talk, today the lead system integrator might be only BEL and BDL. But when you talk about the complete ecosystem, including all the MSMEs, it comprises for Akash missile system is 254. And 254 industries are working together. And their supply chain will never break, and that's how the industries are getting with each and every Akash system is supplied to Indian Armed Forces. They get the business. If it is exported, again they get the business. So this is our aim, and that way we try to do it. Here, one speaker also told one very good thing about the quality assurance. I think this was from Ananta Technology, Dr. Subba Rao. The quality assurance is a very, very important part. And now, whatever the technology we are developing, we are ensuring that entire QAP, along with the technology transfer document, is provided to the industry, and we handhold them for the quality assurance. Because what happens, many times we have seen, the entire product is good, but just because of quality is not taken at the time of raw material or during the process or during the subsystem, sometimes it suffers. Nowadays, we have made a separate directorate which is looking after the quality assurance. And that's how we are ensuring the complete quality, and the complete quality system is intact when we talk about transferring the technologies. See, this ecosystem, what I'm talking about, now DRDO has taken another big leap, and I think you must be knowing about it, that 108 items we have released that DRDO will not work on. The reason is, now we have seen that our Indian industries are capable of doing many systems, many subsystems, where DRDO need not to invest the public money because already those capabilities exist in India with the industries. Our job is to develop the technologies and transfer to the industries so that industry supplies to armed forces. But when all those technologies are already existing with the industry, where is the need for us to do the R&D? Rather, we can move on to some different products where we can do better technologies, and we can provide those support to Indian industry so that they can supply to the armed forces. So those only technology gaps and the niche areas now DRDO is focusing, and that's how the 108 items list DRDO has released. We have mentioned that we will not do those items. Those items will be done, those products will be done by the industries. But nevertheless, if industry wants any support from us, we are there to handhold the industries. In the sense, suppose they want certain subsystem, certain technologies to be developed by us, we are going to handhold them. Let me tell you, DRDO has also declared on DRDO website that we are going to support industries in various ways. Some 8 methods have been mentioned. And one of the methods is that how to support technologically and scientifically to the industries. Here our aim is, suppose you have got certain orders from, say, some Navy, say from Israeli Navy, or say from Myanmar Navy, from Bangladesh Navy, and you want certain subsystem to be interfaced with that platform. You require certain software, you require certain subsystems, etc. Those prototypes and those technology we can develop for you. It is under a scheme called Deposit Work Scheme, and we will support you, we will handhold you, and that's how you will be supported for that particular technology. Also, we have opened our patents for the industry. The industry can use our patents, and they can make their technology by themselves. All marketing rights will be with them. The patent will remain with DRDO. We have recently included many test facilities in our kitty where industry can use those test facilities. Earlier industry used to go abroad for the testing, etc. There again we are supporting the industry so that whatever we talk about the global defense supply chain, the industry has to be strengthened. And now this is the resolve of the officers, the scientists in DRDO, that we have to support our industry to the head. All the countries in the West, they have supported their industries like anything. That's why their industries have come up that way. And this is now our resolve that we will also support our industry so that they also come up and compete globally. Until unless our industries will grow and they will generate the necessary wealth, what is required for the developed nation, I think India will not become Atmanirbhar. I think this is the time. All the government policies are very conducive. They are supporting. Using those policies, then we are dovetailing our DRDO policies so that industries and DRDO, along with the academia, we can grow together and we can find that our products are being not only developed at world-class quality, rather they are being exported also. One more thing I will have to tell you, DRDO has made SOP for export. Earlier what used to happen, suppose RFI has come and industry wants to code, then by the time they used to go to all our channels for the clearance, by the time RFI date used to pass. So what we did, we have made one SOP where the all DRDO developed products, we will support industry, how to make the specification, how to get that clearance for the specification, how to respond to RFI, etc. And meanwhile, through Department of Defense Production Channel, they will apply for the permission, and by the time they respond to RFP, by the time their permission will come, so they do not lose time. Also, we have made the export compendium. All the technologies which can be exported by DRDO, those technologies have been made in the form of a book. That compendium is there, and those technologies, along with the suppliers, Indian industries names have been mentioned, their contact details have been mentioned, so that those industries are facilitated further so that they can export, and those compendiums are being distributed to all our embassies abroad, so that our technical advisors, etc., they are working on it and they are communicating that these are the Indian technology, DRDO developed technology which can be used, and they are the world-class technology can be taken up. And there is a lot of good response from various countries, and we are working on that area. Lastly, I will tell you one more thing. Earlier, we always used to find that R&D culture is not very much there in Indian industries. Now, of late, they have come up in R&D fantastically. That's why whatever technologies we have transferred and they have developed further over it, and that's how they have made other variants. So I will not say that all industries are like that. Many industries have understood the value of the R&D. But apart from that, DRDO has started technology development fund. We have pledged there only 100 crores right now, and up to 10 crores project we are funding. Where any requirement is there from Indian Armed Forces or by DRDO, there we invite the industries and we will fund them for R&D purpose so that they develop the complete product and they supply to Indian Armed Forces or for necessary technology to DRDO. And these technology ideas of DDP all put together, that's how we are trying to reinforce this complete system so that Indian industries are actually supported. And that's how whatever the products and technology are being made, they are not only supplied here, they are exported, and that is going to make actually the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and where we will achieve our 5 billion target also, whatever our Honorable Prime Minister has told. And this is the right ecosystem to surge ahead. Of course, in the light of the LAC, etc., what is happening with China, I think this is further more important, further more imperative on us that we should develop our own technologies, we should sustain ourselves, and we should go for world-class technology and export them so that we can sustain our industry as well as we can sustain country with the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. That was very nice, Dr. Mayank. I really like the statement you made. We are proud of our industry. I think that is a very, very big statement to come from DRDO and coming from the technology arm of the armed forces of the MOD. I think this only indicates that our industry has matured to a level where we are breaking free of the license regime. We have already seen that we have crossed the barrier of 49%. We have gone up to 74. We are now focusing on defense exports, like you said. We have established the capability, the manufacturing value chain, and this is one of the things that Ashwini did talk about earlier in the day when he said, this is one of the gaps that he finds, and establish an industry with holistic capability. That's what Bill Blair was also talking about. And I think what we need to do, Dr. Mayank, is building a manufacturing attitude. What I really want to what I really want to say by this manufacturing attitude is we need to have a tierized approach, and we need to be very clear how the tires will support each other. And when you talk about Akash, the 254 companies which make up Akash, and together they remain together to make it successful. I think we need to find out that little method of doing that. I have two questions for you.
Please.
One is, if we have to achieve the vision of the Prime Minister of a 5 trillion economy, and you said, the defense should play an important part. One, how much should the defense industry grow in the next about 5 years? If we have, let us say, let's talk in terms of percentages. If we have 100 suppliers today, how many more should be added as we go in next 5 years to achieve that? Number one. If we want to achieve the export potential as dictated, if we want to achieve the production capability as given in the production policy, what should be the production capability in the industry? Third, there is a recession going on in the automotive industry today. And a number of these automotive manufacturers want to, come into defense. What do you think should be a roadmap for them? What should they attempt first? And with 101 and 108, how does that affect the automotive manufacturers in the country? And I really like the SOP for exports, because that's part of ease of doing business. And that, of course, DRDO has done very well to do that, and the TDF. So if you can just throw light on these 2-3 issues, it will be very nice, sir.
Sir, thank you very much. First question is very good question. How much shall we grow? Today it says we are 100 industries. How much shall we there? I think the growth is concerned, it may be might be 2 times, 3 times, does not matter much, but it depends on the quality of growth. Today, let me tell you the type of industry which we are engaged with. DRDO has got the ecosystem of more than 14,000 industries, where almost 2,500 plus industries are directly working for various systems and subsystems. If we grow them with the quality, like who are the panelists sitting right now, I think most of them, they are working with DRDO. And I can say Anand Technologies, surely we are working together, that SMPP, Consulsar, we are working together. So the industry, the type of business they are doing and the type of innovation they are capable of doing that. Like I can give you the example apart from that, like Astra Microwave, their data pattern, Alpha Design, Kineco, Centum, Accord System. There are many are there in the line. Those people, they have generated whatever was given to them. Earlier they started with some fire control system or some small communication device, etc. And today they are more than 2,000 crores company, 5,000 crores companies like that. I think that type of quality development and that quality growth is very important, rather number of industries multiplying. Of course, we have got very capable MSMEs, etc. And those will be there, they will be multiplying, they will be coming up. And like as you told, automotive industries are planning to come here. It is not because automotive demand has come down. Probably because of the recession, people are not able to spend money. They want to hold and they want to watch how the market is going to take shape. That's why they are probably holding the money. But certainly the situation is likely to change. So as far as this commercialization part is concerned, how much industry should grow, I think this depends. This is only guesswork I can say. But yes, many hold they have to grow, and moreover, they have to grow with the quality products. These are the two questions. And one question you also asked, I just forgot what he asked one in between also. If anything I have left. Not able to hear you.
Okay, so automotive to defense.
Automotive and defense means, like tell you, like Tata is right now working for WEP along with DRDO. So already they are switching over to defense systems. And I think in India, the type of automobile industries are there. They are quite capable doing the defense vehicles also. So they can very rightly can move to that direction. But automotive sector, you say it is not going to pick up in future also. And right now recession is there. It might be for a temporary phase. I have read, I think a few days back in Times of India again, that car segment has started climbing up, etc. So probably they will pick up very soon. It is just a matter of chance that probably because of LFC standoff and COVID-related recession, etc., all put together, they have put them down. People are holding money. Money has not gone anywhere. People are holding money. They will spend it.
Good. Thank you very much. People are holding money, and so are we, because we're not eating outside, we are not doing anything, sitting at home, and we learn how to spend. Thank you so much, Dr. Mayank. I request you to hold on for some questions from the audience. But in the meantime, I should invite the person who's been in the forefront of Make in India Resolve. He brings in the investment and growth in the defense and aerospace sector, instrumental in setting up the Defense Innovation Organization for creating a collaborative platform for startups to meet the defense requirements. A postgraduate mechanical engineer and a cost management accountant by background, he completed the MBA in finance. Now, he's worked in diverse fields. He's a person who the industry loves. He's a person who talks to the industry. He's a person who encourages the industry. He worked as secretary to the government of Andhra Pradesh in IT and communications department, and he's worked with the mullahs in Hyderabad. He knows how people operate. He's been the municipal commissioner in Visakhapatnam, an area very close to me because I studied from there, from the Sainik School, Korukonda, and of course. He's been at the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg. He made presentations on e-governance. He participated in international and national conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Mr. Sanjay Jaju.
Thank you, Kuber. That was a little too long of an introduction. It really embarrassed me. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's becoming a new normal. Of course, it's always good to meet in person, but unfortunately, the current situation is not permitting all that, and we found this via media. And I'm very happy to be part of the discussions that are happening. And importantly, I'm very happy that the industry associations have started to play a role of what you call the real interlocutors between the policymakers and the people who actually are going to make use of those policies to really do things on ground. And I think that's where the role of organizations, industry organizations, and ASSOCHAM becomes very important. I'm not going to delve into the issues that have already been flagged by my predecessors in speaking order. I'm going to be only talking about a few things that have recently been done, and I'm sure all of you might have had a look at it. I'll first start from the announcements that were done in the Atmanirbhar Bharat defense package. I think all aware of them, so we will talk about them. To provide implementation framework to the entire package, we've also come up with the draft Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy. It's also been placed in public domain, and we've also received useful contributions from the members of the industry. I'm sure many of you have seen it, and I'm very happy to receive your comments on the draft Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy. And if you look at the policy, it's a document that actually not just lays out the vision to achieve a $25 billion economy by 2024, an export economy of $5 billion by 2024. It also lays out a roadmap for development with the help of more than 90 strategies. And these strategies have been bundled in 8 different groups. And the idea is to provide focus and attention to the growing debate of how to make India Atmanirbhar in terms of defense and strategic supplies. We also brought out a list of 101 items which have now been put in a negative list as an embargo, that these are only going to be purchased from Indian sources. I think the thinking is quite clear that we're looking at Make in India as our guiding paradigm. And when you say make in India, it does not mean that we are being protectionist. And because there are participants who belong to various cross sections of OEMs, Indian manufacturers, Indian small companies. The idea is not to go back to where we started our journey in terms of the license Raj. The idea is to create design and development capabilities within our country. The idea is to invite global OEMs to come and set up operations within India. Idea is to encourage our MSMEs, our companies, Indian companies, to become part of the global supply chains. To become part of the global supply chains, not by doing labor arbitrage or by insisting on the OEMs to start buying from India through offset route and stuff like that. But the idea is for these companies to stand on their own feet, become part of the global supply chains on their own merits. And all that can only happen if our economy and if our companies become globally competitive, globally integrated. And that's why I'm again using the word that this whole Atmanirbhar Bharat story is not around protectionism. It's about getting ourselves closely connected to the global supply chains and become competitive and provide value for money products. As was being mentioned by the Boeing reps, they have a huge supply chain within the country which is producing a big range of items which are now being used in Boeing platforms globally, and that in itself explains that it's not that by mandate you create global supply chain. You create supply chains because you offer value for money and you offer products that could be integrated into the supply chains on merits alone. And I think that's where we are looking at Indian companies to become part of these supply chains over the next few years, next 5 years. In the policy, there are multiple areas that we're talking about, but when it comes to private sector, and I think when I see the partners who are part of this conference and presentation today, I realize a lot of private sector partners. We're also looking in terms of a level playing field. In this department, we do not distinguish between the public sector and the private sector. Our support is there for both. And we don't want to buy the theory that the strategic sectors should only remain in the hands of the public sector. We want this chain to become broad-based. We also want this chain to become multi-tiered. And we also understand the role of a system integrator on top, and then you have multiple tiers at 1, 2, 3, which eventually play a role. If you look at the draft defense production policy that we have laid out, we're also looking at few sectors in terms of investments. While there are platform-centric approaches, which anyway we are also following, we are looking at a different idiom when it comes to investment promotion. And we have identified 3 segments in our policy. First was the aero engines. It is also part of our vision document that we intend to set up an aero engines complex. And the aero engines complex would be allowing a lot of critical materials and critical technologies to get developed in India, so that we develop capabilities for designing aero engines within our country. And then it also opens opportunities for both civilian as well as the military sectors. We're also looking at MRO being one of the important elements of our investment promotion. As part of that, we'd agree that the recent rationalization of the GST structure has opened a lot of opportunities for the MRO sector now within our country. And with the MRO sector opening up, we expect the component industry also to be benefiting from the relevant supplies and chains which are going to be there. Then we're also talking in terms of general critical technologies and materials that we expect the industry to play a major role. So we are looking at some of these segments to become drivers of growth. I agree with you that these are really pessimistic times. COVID situation being around, its economy is under stress. Obviously, everything gets impacted, both on the supplies as well as the demand side. But at times, it's situations like this which also brings out opportunities, and I think that's where the entire focus of this department currently is. I know a policy is only half as good as it is on paper. I mean, unless and until it is backed by a good implementation plan. And an implementation plan in any policy is, especially in an industry-led sector, is driven by people on the ground, and I think that's where I would like to make use of this opportunity to exhort all of you to make use of the provisions that are there. I know you have your own concerns. Defense being a monopoly, you'll always have problems with the orders. You'll always have issues with level playing field. But I can assure you, we from the department side are trying to make all efforts to see that all these hurdles and impediments are removed. You might have also seen the change in the FDI formulation that we have brought in. 74% under automatic route. FDI is now permissible for all kinds of new investments. A new category called Buy Global Manufacture in India has been introduced in the defense acquisition procedure. And I'm sure the global OEMs can start looking at India and setting their operations here. And not just produce for India, but also produce for the rest of the world from India. We're also growing in the startup ecosystem with the world's third largest startup ecosystem. There have been a lot of cutting edge technologies and products. In the Ministry of Defense also we have the innovations for defense excellence, which is bringing a lot of good change and improvement. And I'm sure some of these startups will also make use of the opportunities that are coming through the Defense Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign. And the global OEMs and the Indian majors will start looking at them and tapping the opportunities which are more started to evolve in the defense ecosystem. India wants to be looked at as a global defense manufacturing hub. A country as large as us is not going to be satisfied with anything less than that. And I'm sure with the cooperation and support coming in from all the industry partners, both from within and outside, the target we made for ourselves, for the country, through our policy, would surely get achieved. And I exhort all of you to make use of these opportunities and be part of this vision and campaign. So once again, my thanks to ASSOCHAM. I would have loved to give you more time, but unfortunately, different commitments. I'm happy to take few questions if there are. But I'd like to wish luck to all of you participating in the process.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Sanjay Jaju, for that wonderful address, as good as ever as it is. And you talked about the wonderful opportunities in aero engines. You talked about MRO. You talked about the entire component industry opening up. And what I really like, and I think this message should go down to the industry, that when we say Atmanirbharta, we are not talking about a protectionist philosophy. We are not talking protectionist, and that's exactly what the government of India has told us just now. And he says it is. And the other message he said is we are looking at integrating our companies into the global supply chain on their own merit, become globally competitive, compete over there and grab the market, and that's all yours because you have the capability. And the third message that was very strong and very clearly conveyed was the concept of level playing field. And I really appreciate that. I think the industry appreciates that, although there are some concerns, as you said. Concerns do remain, but yet the very fact that the government is working towards that gives a great hope to the private sector, because let it be very clear that without the private sector, the government can go nowhere, or the country can go nowhere, because the private sector integration into the larger scale is very, very important. And I think that message you brought it so very nicely. So, sir, you've been the author of a number of policies. And every policy that you've talked about, I think has come out very good and has been a great success. When I see this FDI policy, this question comes from the audience. So I want to ask you this on behalf of the people here. When we see this FDI policy, the first line says, for those companies which have an investment of less than 49%. Or for those where the government's approval has been accorded for less than 49%, you need to intimate the government of India. You need to intimate the Ministry of Defense. A mandatory declaration needs to be made. So this is one statement that comes out in the FDI policy. The second thing is point number 6, which is with regard to the national security angle. Can you please, sir, explain for the benefit of the audience what actually these two things mean?
Thank you. Good question. In fact, I'll just tell you what it used to be earlier, and then you will be able to contextualize what we have tried to bring in here. Earlier, we had a system in 2016's policy that 49% was automatic route, 100% government route. But what it used to be earlier was that the existing, let's say you are not seeking a new industrial license, or you, let us say you have a joint venture with say 10% quality for an FDI. You want to raise your 10% to 15%. That is well within the automatic route earlier. The earlier policy had that even for this small incremental change also you needed government approval.
Correct.
So, for example, you had a JV which had as per 2013 policy 15% foreign FDI, and the current rule says that automatic route is 49%. So a new company can straight away bring in 49% automatic route, no problems, but an existing company had to come for every incremental small little equity and seek government approval. This is what was the situation earlier. So we have removed two impediments. First is, if it's a new investment where you are seeking a new industrial license for a new company, for a new industrial license, for a greenfield project, you can bring in 74% under automatic route straight away. So complete control of that company is in foreign hands. 74% automatic route. But still, there were existing companies, existing joint ventures, which would like to raise their equity. Till 49%, we are saying again, you don't need to even seek government approval. You bring your company up till 49% automatic route. Only intimate to us so that we are aware of what's happening. Beyond 49%, because these are existing companies, we don't want hostile takeovers and stuff, defense being a strategic setup. We are not saying that we are not going to permit companies being taken over. We cannot do that. We don't want to do it. Only thing we are saying is we will still have the government route available for brownfield companies going beyond 49%. So greenfield, 74% automatic route. Brownfield, 49% automatic route. Beyond this, 100% government route. Security conditions are there earlier as well. I mean, there's something that's not new at all. Every last policy also written that. See, tomorrow, if let us say we find that there is some 74%, you bring in 74%, and tomorrow we realize that no, it's something else. Then we need to have some understanding of it. So I don't read too much into it. We believe that bona fide investments are going to come in, and we will respect all that.
Thank you, sir. That question was from Himanshu Mishra from Ernst & Young. I think, Himanshu, you must have got the answer by now. And I think it was a very good question that you raised. So that was really very good that we have this FDI policy which has been enhanced to 74%. The draft DAP still speaks about 49% in terms of by IDDM, and also when I look at the strategic partnership model, we are still talking at 49%. Is the DAP going to be aligned, or the DAP is going to supersede the FDI policy?
See, FDI policy is one aspect of permitting companies to hold foreign equity. When it comes to procurement under various categories can have their own qualifying conditions. I mean, one particular category may write that, let's say, I'm not saying all that because I don't own DAP. DAP is still in works, and hopefully you'll get to see it in the next 15-20 days. But the fact remains, for example, when I issue a tender under a particular category, it is the prerogative of that tendering authority, in a general sense, to say that, look, I want these conditions to be satisfied by the company that's participating. So tomorrow they might say that, look, buy Indian IDDM, you may have 74% FDI, but for this particular category, I want this company to satisfy, say, the Indian ownership condition. So you can't take that right away from anybody who is issuing a tender out. So it all depends on what classification a tendering authority brings out in their internal procedure.
Thank you.
Consistent with FDI at all. That company is still a legal company. It's got a 54% FDI. But whether that company is eligible to bid for a particular project under a particular category, I think all those formulations have to be done by the tendering authority. So wait for the DAP. And obviously, now you have this Buy Global Manufacturing India category brought in.
Yes.
I think that very closely aligns with 74% FDI.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. That was so kind of you to have taken your time, and I know that you have to walk out for another meeting, and there are no more questions from the audience. So all that is left over for me is, on behalf of ASSOCHAM and this excellent panel and the excellent audience who are here with us, to thank you for sparing your time and giving such a clear indication and clarity over the policies and procedures. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and wish you all good luck and safe and healthy times.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an excellent talk from Mr. Sanjay Jaju. We had Dr. Mayank Dwivedi talking to us a little while ago from the DRDO angle. Now you heard Mr. Sanjay Jaju talking about the policy. It's my pleasure now to talk about the corporatization of the ordnance factories. And I heard, an MSME Japala talking about that it should be corporatized. People have got very strong views on the corporatization of the ordnance factories. Some people say that some of them should be closed. Some people say that some of them should be enhanced. Some people say that they are excellent. Some people say that they are good. And let me tell you, they are the oldest. They are the largest. They have excellent capabilities. They have got excellent skill set. Each factory is a gold mine. Each factory is capable of doing so much for the country, but unfortunately, they are controlled by the government. So even the Prime Minister has gone earlier on record to say that the government should not be in the business of doing business. The government business is to lay down the policies, and the business should be taken over by the corporate. And I think that's the way they are going. And we have with us Mr. S.C. Bajpai, Indian Ordnance Factory Service, been the former Director General Chairman of the Ordnance Factory Board, an MTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Kanpur, Masters in Advanced Manufacturing Technology from Cranfield University, UK, MBA from MBDI Gurgaon. Oh God, he's been just here next door to me, a distinguished fellow from the National Defense College, a vast experience in manufacture of varied defense products ranging from artillery guns, small arms, armored vehicles, ammunition. What I must add to his little profile, ladies and gentlemen, is he's a very, very modest, a very wonderful person, a very nice person to interact with, and who will give us a lot of yarn. Sir, we want you to tell us clearly, should the corporatization be speeded up? Should it happen soon? And what do you see for the ordnance factories post-corporatization? Over to you, sir. You're muted, sir. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, please.
Oh, thank you, Colonel Kuber, for giving me the opportunity. I'll talk about the corporatization a bit later. Give me a few minutes before that. Earlier speakers from private industry, DRDO, DDP, they have spoken about their role in enhancing India's role in global supply chain. I must say, Ordnance Factory, as you have already told, the oldest organization in the country. Right from the beginning, they have been promoting the local industry and indigenous content. If you go through the license holder, more than 460 licenses have been given. If you go through that list, you will trace many of the, the license holders. Their roots lies back to the ordnance factories. Many of them started their, industrial journey through ordnance factories. Helping the ordnance factories, supplying to ordnance factories. So that itself, is the ordnance factories' role in enhancing the global, in the Indian defense production ecosystem in our country. And I can tell you that among all public sector enterprises, the highest indigenous content is OFB is having. It's nearly 87%. So that itself is a testimony that Ordnance Factory has been helping the Indian industry in a big way. And Mr. Jaju has spoken about the steps being taken by the DDP, by the Government of India, in facilitating the new entrants to join this defense production ecosystem. And as a result, a lot of automobile majors were already there, and many people from the metal industry, from the electronics industry, and other industries are joining at a very fast rate. Enablers have already been provided to the extent it can happen. I think it was never before like that it is happening now. Enablers in the form of the recently published negative import list of 101 items. Enablers like the enhancement of FDI to such an extent which really facilitates the formation of joint ventures, not only by the large corporations but also by the medium and the small scale industry in a big way in the time to come. And enablers like DRDO's list of 108 items, systems and subsystems to foster the indigenous design and development capabilities and own the Indian IPRs by the Indian industry. In response to all these enablers and the facilitators provided by the government, in the coming years, we are likely to see a large number of indigenously designed, developed, and manufactured weapon platforms and systems being offered to Indian Armed Forces. And probably, that will be the bit of our private industry in response to these enablers to the defense, to the nation's defense production building. At that stage, very important thing which will determine the success of this whole, I'll say, the movement will be influenced. The key player will be our users. We have been interacting right from the beginning. Colonel Kuber mentioned about my, profile. I just finished my MTech thesis on 31st of December 1979. I remember the day, still, more than 40 years. And 31st December, I finished my MTech thesis. And 1st January, I joined at Gun Carriage Factory. The next day, the night I took the journey by train at those times. And next day, I joined Indian Ordnance Factory on 1st of January 1980. And 38 years I have passed. So I can tell you, from my own experience, that key success, everybody is wobbling because of the stimulants, enablers, and Indian industry has a lot of hopes. So the key the factor which determines the success will be the hand holding by our armed forces, our users, which is extremely important, because many of the players who are joining this ecosystem are the first time entrants, or not so really experienced in the indigenous design and development. And when they are offering their systems first time, probably, in all probability, it may not be really fully perfect. So the expectations from these players will be from the users to accept, at least for a smaller quantity, let it be for limited quantity, orders should be coming to these people for Mark 1. And always they can improve upon and give a Mark 2 and subsequently. That's how the sort of iterative process the industry will grow and develop, and the design capabilities. Because unless we have the design capability, the Atmanirbharta in real sense, it will never be over. Neither our dream of becoming a really substantial player and prominent player in the international global supply chain, it won't be fulfilled unless we develop indigenous design, development, manufacture capabilities with Indian IPRs. So to start with, in their first efforts of the Indian industries, they are working very, very hard. We had been also working very hard for all those years along with the DRDO, and now the new friends have joined here. That is expectation, I think, not only from Ordnance Factory had already been there. That is expectation from the Indian industry also, from the new entrants also, and it's a very crucial. I'm happy that representation from users is also there in the form of Honorable MGO, and he's listening to it. In fact, sometimes I wish and I feel, had these enablers like negative import list of 101 items is already come. I understand the second list in the pipeline. The other things, the project management committees which will handhold the things throughout the contract management. All these things, had it come earlier, about 10-15 years back, Dr. Mayank and me would have been very happy, because many of our efforts, sincere efforts put up with a lot of efforts of DRDO and OFB would have fructified. We would have definitely seen many of the projects, fructifying and going in the hands of Army, had these enablers had come about 10-15 years back. But it's good then that DDP is taking a due note of it. And apart from our Atmanirbharta for Indian forces, when we talk about the global supply chain, when we talk about the export target of $5 billion in the coming years, and a significant presence of Indian industry in the international supply chain, it's fact that there has been very good growth, nearly 700% in the recent years. But if you really analyze, the content of it, the share of indigenously designed, developed, manufactured, and owning the IPR, that category of product is really limited in so far in that export basket. And certainly, this is, in my opinion, this is the the most important area if to become a really self-reliant and global player in the true sense. Again, it is not possible. This will not be possible again unless our armed forces, Indian armed forces, handhold the Indian companies. Because I can tell you with my experience, we used to participate in various DEF expos in India and as well as abroad, and we used to offer our OAP design equipment, weapon platforms. We used to tell them all the specialty. They used to seems to be very much convinced, appreciative about it. But at the end of the discussion, they used to ask, "Is Indian Army using it?" And at that moment, probably we have to look sideways and tell, no, trials are going on, and hopefully we'll get it also. So, what I'm trying to emphasize here, the first, the Mark 1 may not be fully perfect or expected up to the expectation of users for these new entrants of the private industry, which is coming, which is joining, this movement. Still, the armed forces have to handhold them, give them limited order to the extent possible, evaluate them, give them a chance for Mark 2, and that's how they build up and improve and become the really one day become the global player. We have seen, and it's not something which is imaginary. We have seen this thing happening in automobile industry. Go back 2 decades, 3 decades back, and the same situation, same transition was happening in automobile sector also. And we know the success of that sector. Things can be very well replicated here. Only the difference between the automobile sector and the defense is, here the demand side is extremely, from the few players only. So the role of users is doesn't need any more further enhancement, and I'm sure this will be provided. And certainly, I'm sure it will be provided, because the enablers like project management units, which take the responsibility of the hand-holding and managing the contract. Now, the armed forces are the main player in that. So certainly, it will happen. Here, with this regarding this PMU, I would like to only add that the necessary empowerment should be given to this PMU, so that they are able to hold their, access authority.
That's good, sir. That's good. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And next, coming to the corporatization of the ordnance factories, I think this is already decisions have already been taken, and at the highest level, and already the process of subsequent implementation and monitoring is also already started. Certainly, it will bring more independence and flexibility in operation, ease of forming the joint ventures. The processes will be speeded up. But it's necessary that again, the hand holding will be required, because if you see the HAL, or other PSUs, unless they get the good orders from the Indian Armed Forces, probably it becomes difficult even for them also. So this hand-holding will be required. If the proper hand-holding is there, I think things can be sorted out. And here, it's necessary at this stage to gain the confidence of the ordnance factories, the management, and the workers, because the fact is that in the coming years also, the ordnance factories are going to remain a key player in the defense of the nation, and not lead to the any sort of demoralization or apprehensions or fear. Things should be very, very transparent. And I think ordnance factories has always risen to the occasion. The wars of 65, 71, and Kargil, these are testimony. Whenever the need came, the ordnance factories have not shown anything wanted from them. and only the support is required.
Thank you.
Support is required because we are the industries where the major customers are from the armed forces. That given and taking the confidence of the Ordnance Factory personnel, I think it should be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Coming from you, it's indeed very good. And in fact, I was quite happy to hear from you saying that the armed forces should handhold. I always thought the ordnance factories were the son-in-law of the government of India, and you get only orders by indent, and you don't have to compete. And always the impression in the industry is that ordnance factories get orders even without winking an eyelid. But coming from you, it gives a very good indication that after all, the problems are the same, whether it is the ordnance factories, whether it's the DPSUs, whether the private industry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if one thing that has been doing the news these days, it is Eastern Ladakh. I think I should talk about that because the Chinese are creating quite a nuisance over there. And with the trust levels at an all-time low, India is not taking any chances along the line of control in Eastern Ladakh, with troops moving to vantage positions all along the border to detect and deter ingress moves by China. So India deploys troops with shoulder-fired missiles, key areas, Eastern Ladakh, so many things are going on over there. And why I mention all that is because I'm going to introduce the gentleman whom you've all been waiting for, the Master General Ordnance, Lieutenant General S.K. Upadhyaya, a very distinguished general of the Indian Army who commanded the hot seat 14 Corps, and he's got his own experience in Eastern Ladakh. He just missed an opportunity to be oblivious by now. He was almost rendered into oblivion, but the Dhruv helicopter in which he was traveling somehow managed to bring him to safety. So all of us know about the MGO. All of us know about the contributions made by the MGO towards Atmanirbharta. All of us also know that the MGO gives to the ordnance factories on indent. There are certain things that are reserved for the ordnance factories based on annual plans made by them. And in the recent past, the MGO branch has opened up this to the Indian industries. There have been some of these items which have been removed from the indenting procedure and placed in for procurement in the public domain. And the MGO has taken so many steps to create more than about 80% sourcing from indigenous sources. And ladies and gentlemen, without standing in between you and my dear friend, Lieutenant General Santosh Kumar Upadhyaya, the MGO of the Indian Army, I just hand over to him for his address to all of us. General Sir, all yours.
Good afternoon, Kuber. I suppose you can hear me. Good, that's nice. I am thankful that you didn't say strength 5 being an old signal.
Yeah. Strength 5, sir, strength 5. All yours.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. And of course, everyone energetic Kuber is there, who has been herding everybody together. And not to say that I missed very many of the talks which have taken place. And I've heard a lot of you and all the points being made right from the beginning. And initially when Kuber yesterday at short notice pulled me in saying you need to come and attend this, I saw the topic and I said, India's role in global defense supply chain. I said, I'm a consumer, so what do I contribute to this? But notwithstanding, it was Kuber's order, so I am here in front of you, with you people, and I will just share my thoughts. As I said, we are the consumer, so we are looking at what we can get, and preferably 100% Indian, nothing better than that. The thought of India being a major player in the global defense supply chain is very heartening. Heartening because in that case, a person like me who looks to source items does not need to look for it. You can look around within India and you will find all kinds of solutions, all kinds of products that you would need to look for. And that's not to say that we are overly dependent today, at least a person like me is overly dependent today. We may have bought major platforms and our profile and inventory may be majorly imported. But as we have gone by, we have actually been into indigenization, and to keep this machine, huge machine of the Indian Army running, we are dependent, but only that much on imports. And so, as I said, my job is to keep all these things going, and once an item comes into the Indian Army, it stays with us for 30, 40, 50 years, depending on the nature of product. Of course, there are some products which are consumable. And this goes on, and like Mr. Vajpayee was saying, they have been a major contributor to us. Of course, ordnance factories are a major support to us. We have our own gripe with them, but that's okay. We continue. Somewhere we have been able to get around them, somewhere they. And the proof of that is the increasing decoupling which is happening and the corporatization which lies over the horizon. All this is happening in the hope of better supply chain, better products, and of course, India integrating into the defense supply chain internationally better. So that is what it is. But how do we look at these things? As I said, the day this happens, we are 100% Atmanirbhar. I'll be the happiest man. So I'll be the happiest man because, as I said, a number of my challenges will be taken care of. The larger picture in terms of the policies at the ministry level, at the government, at the apex government level, have been spoken of. We have had various people speak of them. The industry perspective also was covered. But you see, we are at the implementing end in the sense that all these policies need to translate into actionable, orders, I would say, actionable orders for the industry. So while the structures are there, we are part of the old system also to an extent. Certain government orders like how to spend public money, how to ensure transparency, how to ensure that there is openness in the system. At the same time, as I say that you don't need to be fair, but you also need to be seen to be fair. These things bring their own challenges, and we find that at the drop of a hat, we say, okay, the need to be seen to be fair also sometimes takes precedence. So all this, puts in delays into our system. And if we have to be seen to be actioning on things, then we need to move with reasonable speed. The speed of procurement in the defense forces or in the defense is definitely slow. But we may be slow, but we are very, very sure of ourselves, what we are doing. And yesterday only I was telling some people that despite the crisis which is going on and which is on in the northern borders, we have hardly had to scramble for, kind of support and or even items. The industry will also be there with us. And I don't think so I have gone around asking people that do something in a hurry, and give me something. How has that happened? That is, as I said, we may be slow, but we are very sure and we are very steady about it. So we definitely plan for the long term, and that long term is benefiting us. There have been some areas which we have been able to address. But notwithstanding that, my earnest desire will be only that all my indigenous stuff comes in. And why I say that is there are even clothing items. Also, they may be very specialized clothing required for the Siachen Glacier, certain equipment required for those areas, which are imported. These are imported maybe because volumes are not very high. That could be a reason. And they could be imported because the technologies possibly are not available here. But despite that, people who are dealing with us will offer that we are, despite all this, trying to, bring in changes that we are able to encourage people to start off in this. and I'm sure we are left with about 15-20% of our inventory which we import, at least on the special type of inventory. And that our target is in the next few years, 3-4 years, we should have the Indian industry doing it for us. And for that, a number of enablers, as I said, we are trying to put in. Some are more coming up. The larger policy has come up. To activate the larger policy, we need a number of smaller, enabling policies to come up, which we are pushing at our end, because it is for us to make them happen and then implement them. So this is there. One of them, of course, you are aware that in case of an imported product, especially a person like me, in case an Indian bidder comes in and he bids and he is not L1, he is assured a 50% order if he is able to match the L1 price. So such like things have already come in. So, but the larger point remains that now we are working at the nitty-gritty of the thing and to make all this happen. But what do we see in the future? As a consumer, since we consume so much of product, as a consumer, what opportunities lie ahead for the industry as I see it? You see, one of the major things that is happening is the decoupling sort of things we are doing decoupling from the ordnance factory, where total dependence is being reduced, and we are looking to create alternate capacities or alternate sources within India. And there are two primary areas in this front. One is which has been described as the non-core areas of the ordnance factory. That is basically clothing and stores like tentage, parachutes, and a lot of other, routine stuff which a large number of people can do. And not to say that this is a small business. This total value of this would be about 2,000 crores from the Indian Army side year on year. So if that is the kind of thing, this is one area which is fully going to go to the industry. 100% is being taken off. It has been happening over the last 2 years. Part of it is visible, and more will happen. But it will still take 5 to 6 years to play out, because I cannot afford a disruption in my supply. And what we have done in the last 2 years, even that is already causing a disruption. So we are now the challenge that we are grappling with is, while we scale down the ordnance factories on these routine requirements, how do we scale up the private industry? Private industry, the last 2 years we have been trying, orders have been given, but deliveries are yet to come in. So at this time, when I am in two boats, that is one partly with the private industry, partly with the ordnance factory, I am grappling with that challenge, but we are still okay. But as I said, next 3, 4, 5 years it will settle down, and this is one chunk of business which is moving into the private industry side. And only thing as I see it happening is there are a set of players who are already existing, and there is a large hope for people to come, but not very many people are coming in. But I suppose it will happen over time. The second area which I see very clearly, which is emerging and which will be available to the industry, is ammunition. Ammunition is a core strength of the ordnance factory. They have been into this business for years together. They have supplied us, but there were a large number of items which they were not making. That is in any case being given to the trade already. And hopefully in next, again, 3, 4, 5 years, we'll have the trade supplying it to us. These are items we were importing, so there was no issue. But as we are going by, we are also looking to items which the ordnance factory was making, and which, if we had any quality issues, we are looking at the trade to do it. Whether trade will measure up or they will not measure up. At the same time, I am not shutting down the ordnance factory as a source of metal. Ordnance factory continues, and we will have some parallel capacities created because of the volumes that we require. So ammunition is a big area which again the industry should be looking forward to from our side, as we decouple to some extent from the ordnance factory and come into the market to a greater extent. And again, the DPSU remain, of course, they are continuing, but as time goes by, I'm sure there will be some more competition for them also. But these are two areas I would flag for everybody. And in any case, even if a big industry or somebody takes the order, I think it's a greater thing because nobody can do anything alone. There will be a series of people involved. It may be the big industry. There could be a number of tiered suppliers. There will be mid-level industries and small players, and all of them put together will ultimately get a big product. But the army or the armed forces will be looking at this thing that we will be firstly diversified. It would have automatically encouraged the Indian industry getting involved in the defense supply chain in a larger manner. Till now, the OSB was doing it when they were supplying or giving orders to us. But now we will do it directly with the industry. OSB will also continue. And possibly this will create new capacities, capabilities, which will enable the Indian defense industry to then connect and take part in the international defense supply chain. Of course, you are all aware that the export have opened up, and I can vouch for it that the OSB is equally proactive and on the export front. Some of it may not be publicized, but they have been doing reasonably well for themselves. They have been able to market some of their products. So, and same thing, we hope people who engage with us will also get into the export business, and that's what it will be good for us actually. Lastly, I'll just quickly finish. What is it? What are we constrained by, and what do we expect from the industry? As I said briefly in the beginning, we are constrained by a certain processes, by the government processes, and which we can cut short to a certain extent. But again, not being private money, we are slightly more constrained. So we do, but not to be worried about that. As I said, a lot of discretion which is available with us, we are exercising it these days. Second is, we are sometimes, I find, constrained by quality of suppliers, and that is, I think, an Indian habit. After some time, the quality of suppliers, they tend to take for it. But then the correctives come in, the quality control aspects come in, which become very rigid. But again, if anybody has a problem, you're welcome, and we are here to be solving those problems. And lastly, of course, we would look from the industry, timely supplies, cost effectiveness is a major issue these days, and quality of supplies. So that is what we will be looking for. All in all, the reason for me being happy that a webinar like this is happening and people are talking of integrating into the international defense business supply chain in a greater manner is that prospects for us are bright, and we will be very good in the days to come. And thank you, Kuber, for calling me over, and it was very nice talking to all of you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, General Upadhyay. It was so very nice of you. And ladies and gentlemen, I must once again tell you, he was in the hot seat in Eastern Ladakh as the things that we are witnessing today. He has been a cool cat corps commander. He's absolutely cool. He's got his head over his shoulders. He was one of the most intelligent and the toppers of our course. He is topped most courses in the Indian Army. He is one of the brightest I would say, of our course, and of course a few courses here and there. And he is known for his composure. He's known for his maturity. He's known for his cool-headedness and his ability to take quick decisions and effective ones. I really liked, sir, that when you talked about 100% in indigenous content and Atmanirbharta, and that is your vision, and it may happen in about next 4 to 5 years. And you gave us the larger picture. You talked about the actionable orders. And what was most heartening was you talked that you did not have to scramble. Well, we knew what happened during Kargil. We knew what happened during Balakot. We knew what happened during the earlier times in the yesteryears. But this coming from you at this point in time, that you didn't have to scramble to get to the readiness that we require, speaks very, very highly of the efficiency in your organization, as also the excellent support that the industry is giving as we are able to support our Indian Armed Forces, who are in the most trying of circumstances as we speak today. We do not know what's going to happen in a few days as we talk, but then I think the support that the industry gives and the people like General Upadhyay who are there managing the logistics and managing the support to the armed forces, I think we are in very safe hands. You talked about the non-core areas, and what is heartening for the industry to know is even in the non-core areas, we are looking at 2,000 crores worth of business, and that's what he said, and therefore even when he is trying to scale down the ordnance factories and scale up the industry, we still have a reasonable amount of business that the industry can look up to. And I was so happy that you talked about the constraints and yet said it's not a constraint. You are able to maneuver some of the processes, but then being public money, there are certain checks and balances as well. We understand that. A quality, timely responses and the smaller policies like, which support the larger policies like L1. Even if a company is not L1, if it's an indigenous company, you'll still take care of them in terms of business. These are very, very useful and very encouraging remarks for the industry. And I think companies that are here will be very happy to hear all that. So, from a very logistics point of view, there are two issues in terms of logistics support to the armed forces who are deployed in forward areas. Does the Army look at a private logistics support provider who could probably stock the items in the time frame that you may actually require and move it to the areas that are required to be moved to sort of mitigate some of the logistics problems that you may have? That is number one. And secondly, in all the NGO procurements that take place, one thing which is very good is that it is much faster than the capital, and therefore the industry stands a very good chance. And therefore, how are we looking at the DPM that is going to be revised? Over to you.
Okay. The first question of yours is possibly looking at outsourcing of the logistics. So you see, the outsourcing of logistics as it is derived and seen for forces like the US Army and all, while that is a ideal thing to achieve, that is one part. But there is a major difference between the Indian Army and the US Army. We operate, fight, and sustain ourselves within our borders. We don't go abroad. We don't deploy outside where the chains are really very long. So actually, we know exactly what is happening. We tend to predict what is likely to happen. We also know the frailty of the system. So, we can put in place a system which need not be very mobile. It can be reasonably static and support any eventuality which comes up. But, so that is the system as it exists today. That is why you may have found that outsourcing has not really happened. But in the long term, if outsourcing can happen, it will be good because it will bring in a lot of efficiencies, manpower efficiencies, cost efficiencies, everything will come in. But one or two attempts have been made. And those attempts have been yet restricted to managing some of our depots or checking the feasibility of managing some of our depots. The moment you give it, apart from the manpower, of course, we are slightly manpower intensive. When we go into the nitty-gritty of telling somebody to take it over and then run it for us, it at times, gets up. So they say, we will not do ABC, we will only do this portion. So that measure of convenience can't work. It has to be an integrated package. But because I would, rather than discuss that, I would say what is on the anvil. On the anvil is that GoCoization of our base workshop, where we are really looking to, outsource and hand over our base workshops as is, where is, and then come and put in our stuff out there and tell the industry partner to overhaul it, take care of it, and give it back to us. Actually, I think that will be the trend-setting thing. If it succeeds, possibly it will unravel and a lot of other logistics outsourcing will follow. Because this is going to be the model and it's going to be a long-term contract for about 10 years plus and things like that. So the first step, as far as I am concerned, is to make that a success. Once that succeeds, then it can be a precursor for many more things to come ahead. So that's what. And the second question of yours was about
DPM.
So you have the DPP revision and it has morphed into DAP 2020. The draft is out there and people are looking at it. So obviously the next step is what's happening to the DPM. If you personally ask me, DPM is a reasonably robust document. However, over the period of time, we have also, based on the experience, picked up if a particular item was tweaked in the DPM, it would actually facilitate procurement from us. And for DPM, we have got a lot of industry inputs also which have come, which is the other end of the spectrum where the industry wants a lot of checks and balances to go away. So we are still trying to find the middle path, but that is you will soon find. The DPM is there, and a new DPM has been finalized with this thing. And the challenge will be how to make it simpler. It is always easy to make a document complex, introduce more processes, and more so in the comments. So the challenge for us will be how to make it simpler and how to make the process simpler. That is what we are grappling with, and we are looking forward to it so that future generations are happier with it.
Thank you, General Upadhyay, Lieutenant General S.K. Upadhyay. Thank you very much on behalf of SHM. All that remains for me is to thank you for sparing your time to come over here. Of course, the honors will be done by the co-chairman on the defense panel. But then, since you are here, I thought I should thank General Upadhyay, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Sena Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal, the Master General Ordnance, for sparing his time. And anybody having any questions, I'll request you, sir, to be around for another 5-10 minutes for any questions that would still come up to you. In the meantime, there is a question for Bill Blair. This is from Raghu, Director, Clock Systems, India, a Bangalore-based company. He says he's an avionics startup major and in the area of avionics engineering and have experience of designing complex avionics systems. How companies like Lockheed Martin plan to leverage this segment of high technology startups that bring in great value? Bill.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, we talked about how we're engaging startups through the Indian Innovation Growth Program. That's more of an incubation and trying to promote. We've actually have a number of examples where startups that were incubated through that program, we've then now brought them into our global supply chain. So one is to incubate them, two is to make their really their business case viable with real work. And then I think, in the context of your question too, it's important how we, create bridges with our tier one suppliers that are our global suppliers, but we're trying to encourage them to establish the same relationships in India so we can grow the indigenous content on our platforms. And so I think that was commented earlier where, we're a systems integrator on a platform, but we've got really important companies that are partners that deliver us to, say, in avionics engines and elsewhere. And so we do work jointly with them through the supplier conferences that we would host, but also just making that direct connection and bridge into our tier one suppliers connecting in with very capable companies such as yours here in India.
Thank you, Bill. There's a very interesting question coming up for the MGO, but in the meantime, I would like Dr. Dwivedi. Oh, he's on the phone, so I'll just wait for him to finish the phone as I'll get to him. So the question to the MGO is here from Vikram Mahajan. He says, And I remember this, when I was having this chat with the former Raksha Mantri, Mr. Parikar, he was always of the feeling that, the WWR, we always overstated, the armed forces overstate. And, he said, I'm trying to rationalize. And we had a very lengthy discussion. Cutting it short, the question that comes from Vikram Mahajan is here. A few months ago, a report mentioned the WWR to be a very small percentage of what is laid down. Has the situation improved since?
As I said in the beginning, we are not scrambling, so we are very good. So you can rest assured while those reports which came, while neither vouch for it nor deny it, but the fact is that we are in no crisis.
Absolutely.
That's what I can point to.
Thank you, General. Thank you, General. So, Vikram, I think we've got the answer. He said that before, we don't scramble, and we are not, going from pillar to post to get things done, which means that the Indian Army is in a very comfortable position. As I said, he was in the hot seat. And Mr. Dwivedi, the question is coming for you. Mr. Dwivedi, if you can look up, the question is coming for you. In the meantime, Kishore Joshi was asking a couple of questions on 51% by foreign OEMs, and I think I got that answered by Mr. Jaju when he said that there are assurances in the DAP which talk up to 49% FDI, but anything beyond 49, well, it is up to the buyer as to how he wants to buy it. Well, we have to wait and see how the DAP aligns to the FDI policy. But my own inkling, I have a funny feeling that the policy procedures are subsequent to the policy, and they will have to be subsumed. And therefore, the DAP in principle cannot override a national policy. This is my feeling, but let's see how the DAP rolls out and what actually comes out of the DAP. So the question here is, with the government finances which have been stretched post-COVID, can it cause hindrance to DRDO plans? And I think I will answer on behalf of Mr. Dwivedi. If anybody else wants to take on this question. Okay. In absence of that, I would say, in general, if I were to ask the same question to the MGO, since he's there, with all these emergency procurements being there, and there is a finance crunch, and there is a COVID crunch, and all that, are the overall plans of the MGO being affected?
I would say no, not at all. You say, of course, we only pay when we get our stuff. While some of the people have delayed deliveries, some are, decided to delay the deliveries. So in the overall scheme of things, what I want immediately, I get, and I pay for it immediately. And people who have gone into force majeure and decided to deliver later, I'll pay them later. So, so this kind of thing, it rolls over. But crisis, to the extent that I'm unable to buy something I want for want of money, no, it doesn't exist.
Okay, that's great. I think there'll be a very similar answer from Dr. Dwivedi on that. So I think, Dr. Dwivedi, I asked the same question to the MGO that, with the government finances being stretched post-COVID, Mr. Dhruv Maheshwari seems to know that the government finances are stretched. So he says, can it cause hindrance to DRDO plans? You're muted.
Hello, are you able to hear? Audible?
Yes.
Thank you. Of course, post-COVID and seeing the economic conditions, certainly they are feeling little heat about the finances. But we have planned our projects in such a way, we have prioritized them in such a way that probably whatever R&D work we are doing, we are able to do it, and we will be able to do the job whatever we are assigned to.
I think he's talking about, on his behalf, let me add on. I think he's talking about hypersonic technology demonstrator with scramjet engine that you have just demonstrated, and projects like that. The light tanks which may be required in the Ladakh region, the directed energy weapons systems which is similar to Star Wars, the BrahMos VL RAM, the anti-satellite. Things like this. Are these going to be affected?
Not at all. Basically,
Wonderful.
these are the niche technology areas, and these are the basically the backbone of the country's defense, and we have to. That is where DRDO is meant for. That all these niche technology areas we have to push, and without any hindrance, very smoothly we are pushing it, and we are getting complete support of the government of India.
Oh, that's really wonderful, sir. That's very nice to hear. And all that is left over for me is to hand over the floor to Dr. S.C. Kansal, the man who is in the limelight in Defexpo in Chennai, and thereafter a company with a great technology. And in fact, I had the privilege of interacting with their research team, and the amount of work that they have put in the bulletproof jackets, and the technologies that they have brought in, and the technologies they have harnessed. They have worked with OEMs like Honeywell. Well, Dr. Kansal, over to you to do the honors of vote of thanks.
Thank you, Kansal. Thank you so much. I thank SHM also for giving me a chance to interact with such a wonderful team consisting of Army, DRDO, and the Government of India, and my various industry friends. Before I do that, in fact, let me thank Kabir for furthermore, he has done my part of my job. He has already done my thanking, including he has also handled the concluding remarks also, question answer remarks also. I thank him because he himself is not so. He himself is so intelligent and Margdarshak. I call him a Margdarshak, and he belongs to a company like Ernst & Young. Everything goes in favor of Margdarshak in the corporate sector. Anyhow, the job I have been given, I must do that job which I have been given. I thank Mr. Ashwini Bhargava, Director Boeing, for his remarks. I fully agree with his remarks that the jobs he has created for 225 suppliers he has created, and the job he getting done is not on the basis of the low cost or the low labor availability in India. That's on the technical grounds. I fully agree with him because I got experience. My company has experience dealing with Airbus. Airbus, who have given us 10 years contract, not because of the low labor or low cost basis, only the technical background basis. They have factorized the cost also. Every year they have put a big factor continuing cost. So it's an automatic route. Only thing is, Mr. Ashwini Bhargava has little reservation on the quality and the speed of the work which he will be getting from indigenous suppliers. To this, I little different with him, and I hope Mr. Subbarao also agrees with me on this issue. Now the time has come when the technical entrepreneur has entered in the field. It's not that normal Lala type are there in the Indian industry. It has improved a lot, and we got a personal experience. My company personal experience dealing with the Airbus. Can you believe that when the audit team of Airbus comes after 6 months, whatever little bit rejection we show it, they take out 90% of the quality control rejection we do it in the factory, which a little bit is there. They take out of that 90%, they take it out. No, you don't have to reject it. So to that extent, Indian industry is taking care of the quality. They are so conscious about the quality. So now the time has gone when people are worrying about the cheap profit point of views. So I hope in the times to come, you will change the views, and the Indian industry also change the views. The suppliers also change the views on the quality issue. Next, I thank Mr. Vishweshwar Rao, which he had oppositely agreed with him on his remarks on OFB, working of the OFB, and he is in favor of corporatization. Yes, corporatization, I personally feel, dealing with 30 years experience Ordnance Factory Board. I fully agree with him, and his concern also. Of course, he's supplying now rather than Ordnance Factory. He's jumped over to the export market. He calls it a big success in that. Of course, now I again come to Dr. Subbarao. What excellent jobs they have done it. Really, I really appreciate it. 300 satellites for 36 countries, they have taken part in that. The reliability, ease of doing business, he's all in favor of what he's saying, Then, of course, his experience in the satellite is remarkable all over the country, worldwide. He needs really appreciation for that. And on my industry front, I really have a special thanks for him. Yes, now comes Mr. William Blair from Lockheed Martin. As per him, they were doing the worldwide business earlier. For 3 decades industry, they didn't have much of a business. They didn't have much experience in the Indian industry. Now, of course, they have already signed lot of agreement with the. He has already signed agreements with the government of India and the US thing. Now, he has gone to the extent of 87% indigenization of the store. 200 suppliers they have got out of the 50 MSMEs with JVs. In July, recently, they have signed JVs with the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, that is SIDM, with 300 companies. That is another thing. We thank you, William Blair. Thank you so much for doing it. Now, Dr. Mayank Dwivedi, sir, nobody can match you. DRDO, what are the DRDO ki jaan hai. The way I have interacted with you, my company has interacted with you, you make force the people relax in your office. You relax with your terms and conditions. You are so relaxed terms and conditions. DRDO has developed under your leadership. It's a remarkable thing. You are dealing with 14,000 companies, no doubt about it. You got 1,000 technology, no doubt about it. Now you are coming with 108 technologies, which is meant only for the private sector. It's a remarkable thing, sir. Sir, now is Sanjay Jaj, Government of India. A man well known for his policies, diversity of policies. यदि किसी ने भगवत गीता मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस में बनाई है, that is Mr. Sanjay Jaju. He's made a Bible for the private industry. Whatever policies they have developed, under present, be it DAP, be it this clarification on the FDI policy, all those things we must. He's really a genius guy and comes at the forefront of everything. I know you very well when you were in Ordnance Factories, Chanda, you were chairman Ordnance Factory Board. You have developed so many indigenous things. You have encouraged all. Thank you so much for that. Finally, I come to Lieutenant General S.K. Upadhyay ji. Sir, today you have made the Indian industry very, very relaxed with your views that you are the happiest man for getting the indigenous product. You got an earnest desire the Indian industry should come up. These are the remarks you have given. You have really made the Indian industry relaxed. Sir, by saying that even Indian industry is not L1 globally in covering the global industry, you will see to it you accommodate that, provided we give the quality. We give the quality and at the reasonable rate. This is what is the remarks you have made the Indian industry like. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Indian industry aapki bhagat hai. With these remarks, I close my thank you remarks to SOCHM again for the sponsors, for the SOCHM team, for all the arrangement making. Thank you so much. Thank you. And the media, of course. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, General. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Subbarao. Thank you, Dr. Mayank.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bajpai, sir. Thank you very much. Kansal, sir. Thank you so much. So nice. Dr. Mayank, sir.
Thank you,
Maza aa gaya. Nice it was. Thank you. Thank you. Ashwini, Bill. Thank you. Bill, thank you so much for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ajay Sharma, sir. See you. Japla. Vishweshwar Japla. Thank you, sir. Thank you.